Hello Commanders, Action here! So today we are gonna talk about a very important dev diary. This one is gonna be the last one before the summer holidays for the devs, so we should expect at least 1 to 2 months time period without a single dev diary to keep us updated on what's coming. However, don't despair, the devs are planning on releasing an open beta next week or so that will be alive during the whole summer vacations, and they will be providing us some bug fixes for this open beta. In my opinion, I think that after the open beta is over, they will be released the 4.0.22 patch, which should be on August like they said here in the dev diary. Now this thankfully will bring a moment of stability for modders, so we can finally play with our beloved modifications to the game like Giga Chad megastructures. Talking about the changes here, the 4.0.21 patch notes. First, they did a little bit of improvements. Now the first one is actually something that I personally haven't encountered, is that there were some storm aftermaths that would completely stop your megastructure build. So yeah, having a Dyson Swarm at 99% done and then an anomaly spawn right under it preventing you from finishing would be pretty upsetting in my opinion. And there is also a save game transfer speed increase for multiplayer players. Well, that's not my case anyways, but hopefully for one of you guys it will matter a lot. Talking about the bug fixes then, most of these are actually not that relevant, just a little bit of fixes to keep things in shape. Some of them are around the UI, tooltips and jobs that weren't being applied as properly. However, there are a couple of them that I would like to talk about since they actually impact the gameplay a lot. Now the first one is that serviles should no longer end up as a specialist or elite. So personally I don't even know someone that plays serviles. However, if they were being applied as a specialist, that would be completely broken, since that is the main negative effect for serviles, and if they don't have it, well, it is pretty bonkers. Then there is also a change to Gestal Empires that now have access to Fallen Empire trade buildings. In my opinion, it didn't even make sense for them to not have access to those buildings, since well, trade is now utilized by all empires and Gestals are the worst ones at producing this trade. However, now they will have a much better way of producing it in the end game, which is normally when Gestal Empires start to need trade due to the planetary deficits and the logistic upkeep for the fleets. High Command calls out for 5,000 commanders to replenish our ranks after the recent losses. Our navy needs you, Commander, to help us fight the countless enemies that threatens our own existence. Enlist today and be a part of something greater. Now talking about the balance changes, there are two here that are massive regarding some origins. The first one is the necrophage. Now the necrophages were in a pretty bad state due to the changes in the pop growth. In the patch 3.14, what actually happened is that it didn't depend on the number of pops you had on your planet. Well, actually it did for the logistic growth, but not for the pop growth overall. However, now, since pops are divided by groups and divided by species, all species in the planet will grow based on the number of pops that they have in that group. So with the necrophage, what happened is that you had a massive amount of necrophages and a low amount of pre-patent species, and what it happens is that those necrophage pops, which represent the largest amount of your population, they had a minus 75% pop growth speed. So they basically didn't grow, man. It was so slow, and they were the largest part of your empire. Now the pre-patent species, they would grow, however, they would not grow nearly as quickly as in the previous patch, because now they grow based on the number of pops that they have, and since they have so low number of pops, they would grow very slowly. The devs then changed it. Now the negative effects for the pop growth for necrophages has been increased from minus 75% to minus 50%, so basically increase of 25% there, and there are more more pre-patent species in the start of the game. So necrophages got a very good bonus here. I know that most necrophages players tend to vassalize other empires and conquer their population to then ascend as necrophages. However, this will actually benefit them nonetheless. The other massive change regarding Origins now is the buff to resource consolidation that now starts with fewer generator and mining districts. However, they start with the maximum number of jobs, and since machine worlds now provide with massive amount of jobs plus 600 for each district, whilst a normal planet only has a plus 200, so 3 times more efficient in the number of jobs that is. That is fantastic, and also the resource consolidation will no longer have the malfunctioning replicator bay blocker. Now this blocker was so bad, it harmed our growth a lot, because not only it reduced our pop assembly speed by -1, but it also cost us 800 minerals to destroy it. I think it was 800, which is a tremendous amount of minerals right at the start of the game. These minerals, you could utilize them to build, I don't know, 2 research labs, 8 mining stations. Yeah, it was a lot of minerals, but thankfully we now no longer need to remove it. There is also some changes to the biological ships that have access to repeatable technologies for explosive weapons damage and fire rate. Well, I don't know why they didn't have access before, but thankfully now they do. The devs also did some changes to the UI and a new modding effect for those of you that like to mod, and they listed all of the changes since the 4.0 release, but we're not gonna go through those ones because, well, most of them already changed nonetheless. So talking about the future here, what's next? It's time to review the last couple of months and look at what we have done and where we are going from here. So the devs actually have a pretty good transparency with us that I heavily appreciate. Transparency is king, especially after a turbulent release. They are gonna reduce the number of patches that they are gonna release, because the quality assurance testers, they were getting much time to actually analyze all of the bugs. This in turn represented that bug fixes were creating even more bugs relating to those fixes. So yeah, it was basically a spiral of things, a spaghetti effect, but thankfully Elysium noticed it. This way they can fix more things and the future releases and updates will have a more meaningful impact. And I really like that they even highlighted the sentence that they remain committed to continuing to fix things until 4.0 release is in the state it needs to be in. This tranquilizes me a lot. Perhaps they won't rush things and actually leave 4.0 to be in a good state before they made further changes to the game. This makes me believe a lot in the true potential of Stellaris, since the new system actually helps us a lot in terms of late game performance. I know most things aren't looking as fast as 3.14, but the main source of lag, which was pops, now we can have, I don't know, 10 million pops in a single empire and it won't even lag that much. It is quite good. So they say that their ongoing plan is to make greater use of open betas, starting with the wilderness open beta that they will launch very soon, and that will be going up until the end of the summer holidays, I believe. And with this open beta we should expect to have more fixes, not necessarily including the wilderness only, but more fixes to other empires in general. They also gave us a little bit of spoilers on things that they are actively working on. Eladrin personally, he's working on improving the AI's behavior, thankfully, and other oddities among pop employment, such as civilians. So what they're thinking about is when you grow a pop, they won't necessarily move to a job and become unemployment if no jobs are available, but instead they will grow as civilians. Actually, it makes perfect sense in my opinion, and my OCD heavily thanks this because we won't have that small briefcase indicating that there is unemployment in all of our planets. They're also looking out at fixing slavery and purging, which, well, I think that slavery is quite buggy at the moment. I, for once, haven't tested any type of slave empires, but I know that many of you guys are complaining about it not working properly. Eladrin then goes on talking about more performance improvements. Well, he actually talked about one that every empire was calculating their biomass far too often, even if they weren't wireless. Well, I think this one is very odd, and I wonder how many other things affecting our endgame performance are currently unknown. So yeah, they are gonna be putting a hiatus on the Stellaris dev diaries until August, replacing them with open beta updates on that weekly or fortnightly basis as they occur. So yeah, perhaps once every week or once every 2 weeks, but we'll still be getting regular updates, just not a dev diary per se. Now the devs also explained a lot of things in the comments. I'll be reading you the most important ones so you can get up to date as well. So Eladrin himself is also looking at the Shadow of the Rings AI in particular, with some fixes to improving the output for this AI. Kinda good, right? Always good to improve the AI. Then this one was very interesting. I had no idea that they actually changed the arc furnace output for minerals in the final stage of the megastructure. So apparently, before we would have these effects like +1 minerals, and at the later stage +2 minerals and +2 alloys for every single mining station in the system. But somewhere along 4.0 the devs changed it to actually reduce the mineral output in the later stage, but well, I mean, it didn't make much sense, and the legend himself actually thought the same way, so they will probably go and revert it, thankfully. They also go on in saying that Shadows of the Shroud and Infernos are already very far along the development, so those DLCs would probably not be delayed, and if they are delayed, it won't be a massive delay nonetheless. They will actually just do some integration because, well, 4.0 was in a pretty rough shape at the start, and they have made so many changes. I expect that some of these changes would impact the already produced content for the future DLCs. Then they are also testing up some mockups regarding the planetary UI. It is pretty different from 3.14 at the moment, and one thing that I really liked about this one is the planetary summary here, indicating the habitability, the decisions, and the terraforming all at once. But this is just a mock-up, right? Perhaps things will change along the way. Regarding some changes to the game performance, Eladrin don't have a specific list of known causes. However, they are aware the fleets are still an issue, so I'm hopefully that they will change the amount of ships the game has at some point in the game, preventing the doom stack, or even, I don't know, changing how bioships grow, because I think that bioships actually have a huge impact on the performance of the game. And well, the AI being in a poor state can also obfuscate or exacerbate other problems. Then the final comment made by Alfred Strike is actually quite interesting. So regarding the strategic resource generation, now that we have plenty of it, we just, you know, build an ancient refinery in one of our planets, and bam! All of our strategic resource needs are completely gone. They will actually shift the strategic resources from the specialists to the workers. Not everything will be at workers, but most of it in this comment indicates that will come from workers. The reason for this is workers actually provide us with strategic resources depending on the special features of your planets. So by doing this change, what they're actually making is turning planets more unique, so you actually need to have a good world for producing rare crystals instead of just bam, putting up a building there and then all of your needs are gone. However, they will still keep the refinery buildings up and running so that they will serve as a fallback rather than the most optimal decision. But yeah, my commanders, that's gonna be it for this dev diary. A lot of things have changed and I'm very hopeful for the future, but leave it in the comments down below what you guys think. I want to know your opinion on this, if the devs are actually going in the way that you think is best for the game, or if they should actually be a little more careful about the release, perhaps delaying the future DLCs a little bit. That's gonna be it, commanders. As always, I'll see you guys next time.